Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us. This is another edition of Studio C70. Today, we are excited to have students from the Academy at Palumbo. These are seniors who are going to be interviewing Councilmember Isaiah Thomas, who is again running for re-election as an at-large member of Philadelphia City Council. So, Councilmember Thomas, thank you very much for joining us. And I'm going to turn it over to Mr. McGeehan.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us, Councilmember Thomas. We've got some questions from our students today, and we'll have 5 different students asking the questions. We've got some general questions at the beginning, and then we spend a little bit of time sort of reviewing your record and your positions, and have some questions around some specific topics that you've addressed during your time on council. And then we also have a speed round of quick and fun questions that we'll ask in the middle, if that's okay with you.
I'm following your lead. Anything for the young people, you know. That's can't say no to the youth. So I'm here.
And so as we start, if everybody in the class could say hi.
Hey. What's up, everybody? How y'all doing?
Doing good. How are you?
Well, I mean, you know, no complaints. I get to talk to y'all, so that just made my day.
Excellent. So I'm going to pass it over to Daniela, who's going to kick us off.
Hey, Daniela.
Good afternoon, Thomas.
Good afternoon.
So I'm going to be starting off the questions. First, we know that this is the second time running. I just want to know what is different about your campaign this year compared to the one in 2019.
So let me help you out. This is actually my 4th time running, right? So in order to run for city council, you have to be 25 years old to run for office, for city council specifically. When I turned 25, I actually decided to run for city council. So my journey actually started back in 2010. I ran for the first time in 2011. I didn't win. The second time I ran was 2015. I didn't win then either. And the third time I ran was actually 2019. And that was my first time winning. So right now I'm seeking re-election for the 2023 race. And I could tell you what's very different about this race than last race is that this is the first time I'm running as an incumbent, which means as a person who has a current seat on city council, I actually have a track record and things that I could point to that I've done while being on city council. So while I'm campaigning across the city, instead of telling people what I will do, I tell people what I've already done and what I plan to do. And is much different trying to convince people to vote for you when you tell them what you've already done compared to telling them what you plan to do. So the biggest difference is my voting record and my track record. And I'm also proud of the fact that because I'm an incumbent and I've been in an office for some time, I'm able to raise money and get endorsements in ways that I couldn't do before because, you know, before coming to city council, I myself was a teacher. I actually still coach high school basketball. I'm still president of the Coaches Association for the Public League. We actually got the all pub game tonight for all of the public schools. Hopefully you guys come out to that tonight at 5:30. But it's very different running this time as an incumbent than the first 3 times that I ran. So thank you for that question. I think it's a great question.
Yeah, I just want to know what issue would you prioritize first if you were to win re-election?
So this year, this term, well, last year technically, but still in this term, I was actually named the chair of the education committee. That happened recently. And over the last couple months, I've been working very diligently to try to address some of the issues with our schools. On Monday, I'll be going to Harrisburg to try to meet with some state legislators to be able to get some funding to address the facilities crisis that we're facing in Philadelphia. So for me, my top priority in my next term will be schools and education. I'm hoping to remain the chair of the education committee. I just got the seat a couple months ago. And my goal would be to be the leader on city council as it relates to all issues, education, whether it's facilities, extracurricular activity, climate culture curriculum, salary, you know, the whole 9. Now, what I will say is this. Every person that's running for office, one of their top priorities must be the economic cliff that we're going to face in 2025. A lot of people don't realize that the 2020 election where we elected Joe Biden saved the city of Philadelphia. The president before Joe Biden wasn't willing to give city stimulus money to help bail us out when we faced economic problems during the pandemic. When the pandemic hit, Philadelphia lost more money than any major city in the entire country besides Detroit. So if we would not have gotten stimulus dollars from the federal government, we would have had to raise people's taxes. We would have had to lay off city workers and get rid of city services. So because we got that federal stimulus money, we haven't had to do that. The problem is those dollars run out in 2025. So when 2025 comes around, will we be raising taxes? Will we be laying off workers? Or will we elect responsible people who understands the cliff that we're about to face and people who are prepared to generate revenue for the city without increasing taxes for people or for businesses? I'm one of those people, and anybody who tells you that they're running for city council and not thinking about the economic cliff that we're about to face might not understand the fiscal status of the city. So those are my personal issue, of course, is education, but the issue all of us are going to have to tackle is what happens when we run out of federal stimulus dollars in 2025, and how do we assure we have enough money in the budget to do all we're supposed to do and not raise taxes for people. So thank you for that question.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ellie.
Hey, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I get to talk to y'all, so I wish I could be there. I wish I could see people and engage people. But I understand.
Okay. Okay. The questions I'll be asking about is about schools and education.
Okay.
Why is the asbestos issues within schools more important than improving the quality of education?
Why is the asbestos issue more important than improving the quality of education? I don't think it's a versus. I don't think that we're choosing one over the other. I think what we're trying to do is do both simultaneously. If you looked at the article that came out this week, one of the things that I actually proposed was creating a separate entity to address the facilities issue and the facilities crisis that we're facing. The reason why I made that recommendation is because if we can put the obligation of fixing asbestos and the facility issue on somebody besides the school district, it would allow the school district to focus on academic achievement, reading scores, math scores, improving curriculum, and things of that capacity. The facilities crisis is so bad that it requires its own level of attention. And the more attention it gets directly from the district, right, the less attention that people are paying towards academic achievement and other things that put you and your colleagues in a position to get a quality education. So I don't think we have a versus conversation going on. What we do have is a unique opportunity. Harrisburg ruled that the way schools are funded is unconstitutional. And with the Democratic leadership in the House, with the Democratic governor, with the surplus that we have in Harrisburg, which is about $12 billion, we can get a huge down payment this year to hopefully address the facilities crisis that we're facing. At the same time, just because we're advocating for money and resources to fix the schools, don't mean that we've taken our eye off the prize as it relates to making sure every child gets a quality education. So it's not versus. Don't think that we don't care about academic achievement and quality experiences for young people. We got to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time, and I think that's what we're trying to do. So I hope that answered your.
It did. Besides facility issues, what other ideas do you have for improving our schools?
That's a great question. I think it starts with how our schools are governed. My first recommendation is looking at how our schools are governed. I know that there are a lot of people who are not for an elected school board. I think that the happy compromise is a hybrid school board where half of the members are elected, half of the members are appointed. But I think the most important thing is being on the school board for the city of Philadelphia should be a full-time job with a salary and benefits. And if we were to do that, it would allow our schools to be governed by anybody, a working class person, anybody. Right now, you have to have a certain a situation in place to volunteer the number of hours that school board members have to volunteer. So that's one thing. I am also very adamant about our curriculum. I want us to teach technology cross curriculum. I want to see civics and government the 12th grade year in high school with the option to get registered to vote. I want to see financial literacy the 12th grade year in high school. So when you graduate, you know what it means to have a credit card, credit score, how to write a check, what it means to get a mortgage, and what it means to go to higher academia and possibly have some debt, and understand what that debt might consist of for those who can't pay for it or who can't get a full scholarship. I'm very passionate about the academic experience of our young people, and I have a lot of ideas related to climate, culture, and curriculum that I think can put us in a position to improve what it feels like to get a quality education in the city of Philadelphia. I just don't want to get too long-winded with that answer because I know we're getting short on time.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was a great set of questions.
Hello, my name's Colin, and today I'm gonna ask you a speed question that you could, easily answer with like yes or no. It's pretty much like a warm up for the interview. And so, the first starting off with, do you like cats and dogs, or cats or dogs?
Cats.
What's your favorite color?
Green.
Do you prefer pineapple on pizza?
Both.
Both.
If I had to pick, I would pick pineapples just because you see them more. And then Kevin Hart said pineapples too, so that's pretty funny to me.
What's your favorite season of the year?
Summer. I'm a summer baby. July 3rd. I do a free
What is your
too, so that's like my favorite thing. I do a free basketball camp every year in August, so that's like one of my favorite things.
what is your dream travel destination?
My dream travel destination? Egypt.
Egypt. Why Egypt?
I believe in African-centered education, and when you look at the history of Quebec and the things that still exist today that come from that culture, I would just love to see what it looks like, and I've never been there before.
Do you like roller coasters?
I used to, I'm 38 now, so I got gray hair and kids, and life is a little different. But when I was y'all age, Dorney Park was like $15 to get in after 5:30, and I would get there at 5:20 and be ready to pay my $15. And after 5:30, I would go in and stay until they closed. So that was like what I spent a lot of time doing. My senior year in high school, I had a driver's license, so I can like drive up there myself with my friends. And I was a big roller coaster guy, but I think I'm just too old for that now. Y'all gonna call me the old corny guy who's like screaming and covering his eyes. I don't think that's a good thing.
Okay. Do you like scooters or bikes?
Wait, you said, do I like pineapples on pizza?
Yeah.
I thought you said pizza or peaches.
Oh, oh no,
Man,
my bad.
on pizza? That's not like, this is no, absolutely not. No.
That's what
Nope.
I'm saying. That's the last council member said the same.
Say it again.
The last council member said the same thing.
The last.
No pineapple. That's not. No. Somebody's training you guys wrong. I'll listen. Come to my office, go get you quality pizza. All right. I'm a pizza guy. All right. I'll get you the best pizza. No pineapples.
Do you like scooters or bikes?
Bikes. Scooters too new for me, man. That's like y'all thing, especially them new electronic scooters they be riding. That's too cool for me. I don't got that type of swag. I need bikes.
Favorite childhood memory?
That's a good question. Like high school?
Like childhood, like anything.
Anything? Okay. Really going to the beach with my grandma. I used to go to Wildwood with my grandma when I was a kid all the time, and I used to love that. That was like something I used to look forward to. They got the long walk from the beach to the boardwalk, and I would just love that walk. I'm old now, so that walk it's just like, oh my goodness, it's pulling my hair out. But when I was younger, I used to love the walk at Wildwood from the boardwalk to the actual water.
Would you kill or save a bug in your house?
I would brush it like that, like this.
Like that?
I mean, I don't want to kill it. I hope it survives, but it like has to leave. So
Tea or coffee?
tea, hate coffee.
And the last question, what's your favorite show?
TV show or just thing to watch?
Like anything to watch.
Okay, so listen, the greatest show in the history of television is The Wire. My favorite thing to watch right now is basketball, and to pass time, I like watching sitcoms and Law and Order. So that's the fully loaded. I can even give you favorite movies too. I'm a big Avengers fan, so like, you know, most Avengers movies will be on my list.
Okay, thank you.
No, thank you. I love entertainment questions, man. I wish all questions was like.
Okay, hi, my name's Gabby. I'm going to be asking you some questions about issues in Philadelphia. So
Cool.
the first question, we had was, what are your plans or how do you think we could address homelessness in Philadelphia?
Homelessness is a complicated issue. You have different type of homeless people, right? So the first thing that we have to do is look at the addiction issues that we have in the city of Philadelphia. And a lot of our homeless issues are people suffering from addiction. I've worked with the state, Tina Tartaglione, our senator, as well as Senator Jimmy Dillon, to bring in more money than what we've ever seen to go to the mayor's office, DBHIS, and to try to fund quality programming, especially programming in the Northeast, that do a good job to be able to offer more beds for people who are suffering from addiction. So that's the first thing. The next thing is dealing with teenagers like you all who either A, have been pushed out of their house because of their sexual preference, or B, because of their financial situation at home. You know, they're not technically homeless, meaning living on the street, but they're bouncing from couch to couch, friend house to aunt house to cousin house. And the reality is that's a form of homelessness too. And so what we fought for in the city of Philadelphia is stimulus money, which is also basic income for renters, to be able to provide financial support to people who might not be able to be eligible for Section 8 or other government subsidies, to get them in a position so they're not bouncing from house to house and couch to couch. The third thing that we're trying to do is look at the land bank to be able to offer more affordable housing as it relates to dealing with the housing crisis that we're facing in the city of Philadelphia. So those are three things that we've done in the past. In the future, what I really want to do is get a hold of a program that we have called Neighborhood Preservation Initiatives, the Neighborhood Preservation Initiative, where we're looking to build 1,000 new affordable homes for people in Philadelphia, whereas though the house value is about $300,000, but we will absorb $150,000 of that mortgage, and in turn provide 1,000 houses for $150,000 for low-income families in the city of Philadelphia to give them access to wealth. So I can talk a lot more about homelessness, but those are a few things that I've done, and one thing that I plan on doing if I'm reelected to City Council May 16th.
Okay. The next question is, what is your opinion on the 2 p.m. curfew that's been put in place in the Fashion District in response to the events that happened earlier?
I'm not for it. I just don't. I don't see how that solves problems that we're facing in the city of Philadelphia. I'm not for it. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a private business, and you know, I can't tell them as government what to do with their private business. But I just think it sends the wrong message. And if I was a young person, I would never go back there again.
I agree. Okay. And our last question is for this topic is, what are your thoughts on the new Sixers arenas that's being proposed to be put in place near Chinatown?
What I've committed to is to looking at an impact study to see what the impact would be if a stadium goes there or not. I honestly think it's a little too preliminary for us as elected officials to make decisions. We need to see who the next mayor is and what that person thinks about the stadium, because at the end of the day, the next mayor is going to be the person that decides this more than anybody. I'm concerned about the traffic issues. Jefferson Hospital is right there. And when you're talking about that type of construction over a certain amount of years, what impact would that have on Jefferson Hospital? We just closed Hahnemann Hospital and they're seeing a lot of traffic. I'm also concerned about the wages for the workers who will work in the stadium. A lot of people who are members of Unite Here that work right now at the stadiums, they tend to bounce from stadium to stadium. So they can do a Sixers game, then a Phillies game, or a Phillies game, then an Eagles game. And that's how they earn a quality living for themselves. And sometimes those employment opportunities are on the same day. If the stadium is moved away from South Philly, well, what happens to the workers? What type of wage are they going to be paid? And how will we offset the wages that they will lose because of the commute and the inability to work 2 games in one night like they're currently able to do? So I have a lot of questions and concerns as it relates to the possibility of the stadium being there, but I also think it's just a little too preliminary for us to take a position or to decide whether it should be there or not. We do recognize that the blight at the fashion district is a concern, 100%. We want to make sure we don't have blight in the city of Philadelphia. I'm just not sure that a stadium is the right thing to do as it relates to that space. But we'll continue to engage community members and other stakeholders as we go through negotiations. And for me, I really want to see how not only do they deal with the traffic in Jefferson Hospital, but I'm also concerned. I'm a big time Sixers fan. I got an Eagles hat on because they did great in the draft last night. But I'm a big time Sixers fan. I love the Sixers. I grew up loving the Sixers. And what I know for a fact is that out of 365 days a year, the Sixers are only going to play 41 home games. So outside of those 41 home games, what happens the other 300 plus days a year when the Sixers aren't playing a home game? Who's guaranteeing that space is going to be occupied? Because if our concern is the blight at the fashion district, the question is, does putting a stadium there address that if that stadium is not going to be used the majority of the time, right? Sixers play 41 home games. You have the Dell, you have the Mann Center, you have the Link. You're still going to have the Wells Fargo Center. All of those different places can take concerts plus other facilities. So you can't tell me that you're going to fill up the other 300 days a year with concerts because, number one, that's not realistic. And number two, you're going to be competing with all the other venues in the city that also can have concerts. So it's so many questions that still left to be answered. You can clearly tell in my tone that I'm very skeptical, but it's not responsible for me to take a position one way or another until I have all the information. But I am very concerned, and there are so many questions that need to be answered in order for this to actually work. And I'm not optimistic that all those questions will be answered, but we'll see.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Boris.
What's going on?
I'm doing good. I'm going to be asking you a couple of questions on gun violence.
Okay.
So the first question here is, on your campaign website, you said that it is through a collaborative effort that would help with supporting the fight against gun violence. How do you aim to unite the people of Philadelphia as well as fellow members in politics, authority figures in general, to support your cause and make sure that efforts are effective?
Well, we've already had some victories as it relates to addressing some of the crime in the city of Philadelphia. We've done things around issues with trash and illegal dumping that has an indirect impact on the crime. We've also done things around creating coordinated efforts between the DA's office and the judicial district to help address some clerical issues that was taking place in the courts that sometimes put people in a position where they were let go when they probably shouldn't have been let go. Overall, the crime crisis that we're facing, the most important thing that we can do as government in the area that we fail more than any other area is not providing enough prevention-based initiatives for young people to participate in the city of Philadelphia. We do a lot with intervention, which means once you've already committed a crime, there's a bunch of programs. But if I'm, say a senior in high school, or maybe even a sophomore in high school, because by the time you're a senior, you got your stuff a little more together. But let's say I'm a sophomore in high school and, it's 5:30, right? And I don't play sports. It's springtime. So I don't play baseball or softball. I'm not a track person. What is there for me to do in Philadelphia that's free at 5:30 in the afternoon that makes sure that my time is occupied in a positive way? We just don't have enough options for our young people. Most times young people get in trouble is when they have idle time. And when you look at the crime statistics in the city of Philadelphia, they've actually declined for every age group except for one: teenagers. Simple. We got to give young people more things to do. We need to give them more jobs, more opportunities, and we need to invest more in our youth. And we've already started to do that. But if we can increase that investment, I think it will curb a lot of the issues that we're facing as it relates to crime. So I can talk more about it, but that's what I think government, as far as the legislative branch, clearly police can do other stuff. Clearly, the district attorney can do other stuff. You know, we have a huge hiring crisis as it relates to cops. We're down 1,000 police officers right now, which is a lot. And that has a direct impact on 911 calls and responses and other nuisance and quality of life issues that we're facing. So at the end of the day, those are things that we can't do anything about. That would have to be the next mayor. But the things that we can control is rec centers, libraries, and nonprofit organizations that offer free programming. And I think we need to invest in that more than we've ever invested in the past. And I think that would put us in a position where we would deter the crime. But let me say this. A lot of people talk about the gun violence in the city of Philadelphia. We've seen a record number of homicides in 2021 as well as in 2022. And you know what the reality is? Both of those years, more people died because of overdoses than homicides. So if we don't get to the core problems that we have in this city, poverty, lack of investment in our schools, neighborhoods and communities that have been forgotten about, if we don't get to the real core problem in our communities, right now is gun violence, but you know, it's going to turn into other issues like what we see with overdose crises and hit and runs and other problems that we have in the city of Philadelphia. The core problem is we have to address poverty and we have to fix our schools, because once we create quality young people, they then transition into quality adults in the workforce.
Awesome. That's a great answer. I was just I really like your point about the core problems, but I also still have a couple more gun violence questions, even though it isn't the problem. But this is relating to the police officers that you mentioned earlier. How can we ensure that police officers are trained in cultural competence, anti-racism, and trauma-informed care?
If you ask them, they'll say they do that already. If you ask them, is it translating? One can argue yes in certain spaces. Other spaces will argue no. But the training is there. We did a visit to the training center maybe a little while ago. City Council did, and we have a lot of new members on council. And whenever we get new members, we try to take them through the boot camp so they understand all assets and facets of government. And when you go visit the training center, they're going to tell you that all those things exist and these things are happening. But how much is resonating and how much is not? What I think we need to do is increase the amount of training hours that police officers need to participate in once you already become a police officer. Not the training to get you to a police officer, but after you've experienced what it means to be on the workforce, in the type of scenarios you're going to face, those trainings need to happen again, maybe every 2 years or so. And then you also need to provide more mental health and trauma support for police officers as well, too, because they are often the first responders who see a lot of traumatic things that are happening across the city. We've seen a record number of children shot. And at the end of the day, police officers are people who often have children, and often those images stay with them. So we want to make sure that they have the training that they need to deal with situations, as well as the mental health support, so that it doesn't create a situation because they're not handling their trauma the right way.
Awesome. Yeah. I have just one more question for you.
Okay.
This is not relating to gun violence. This question states, what was the most challenging part of your first term on city council?
That's a great question. Let me give you a couple. So when I became an elected official, like one of the things that was really challenging to me is that elected officials just don't talk to each other like that. When COVID hit, you would have thought that all of us would huddle in a dark room somewhere like you see on TV and, come up with this master plan to make sure everybody was safe. That just didn't happen. And to me, that was very frustrating. And there's a lot of things that are happening that I won't forget. There was a fire during the pandemic where a family was stuck in a house, and I want to say close to 10 children died in that fire. I'll never forget that in that family. We had a rec center staffer who was shot and killed while just being at work, being outside cleaning up. And after she was shot and killed, I went to go visit her family, and she has 3 children. One of them close to you all's age, and 2 of them that are in the elementary school age group. And talking to her children and watching them mourn after their mom had been killed accidentally, but still killed, was an image that I'll never forget. And then last but not least, when the police officers responded to the Walter Wallace shooting right after the George Floyd situation in 2020, it was very controversial. And all of the council members went to go watch the body camera footage of the actual shooting. Not the body camera footage they released for everybody to see. We got to see the unedited version of that body camera footage, and just watching, Walter Wallace lose his life in front of his family is an image that I'll never forget. I can still hear the scream of his family when he was shot and killed. So those are just some things, mostly bad than good. And we've had a lot of good things happen, but being in this seat and seeing some of the things that we've seen, unfortunately, the images that stick with me and weigh heavy on my heart are just some of the most traumatizing things that I've ever seen in my life. And so, when you guys post those fight videos, and not you per se, I know the great students at Palumbo would never do stuff like that. But when your age group, post those fight videos and, other things like that, I just can't consume that stuff at all. I still coach high school basketball, so I try to be as involved with the young people as possible. But just certain images, I just, my brain can't consume it anymore, because it's going to put me in a position where it's just too traumatizing. It's just too traumatizing. So that's the long-winded version answer to your question. And I love that North Carolina flag in the back, even though I'm a Penn State guy. But it's the
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, that's me. You got a tar. That's a Tar Heel right here.
I see.
So yeah. Well, we just want to thank you so much, Councilmember Thomas, for your time and for your honesty and for your openness and for all the sort of energy and detail you gave us to the answers. So can we give Councilmember Thomas a round of applause?
Thank you for having me. I promise I'm not boring in person. So if I'm a little more entertaining in person, I wouldn't be as boring. I know my answers were long-winded and provided a lot of government details that could be pretty dull. But thank you for having me. I know it's almost dismissal, so I'm not going to keep you any longer.
Yeah.
The last thing I'll say is I have a robust internship program in my office. So any young person that's looking for an opportunity to stay busy and stay positive this summer, please feel free to reach out to my office and we can help you get a job or internship or anything else that you might need to support your journey as you graduate from high school and transition either into higher academia, into the workforce, or, I know you guys even like a gap year sometimes. So whatever you decide to do, my office would be here to support. And we love working and engaging young people. Jackie on this call is a former intern, and now she's my campaign manager. So we love the intergenerational leadership component, and we love to build a bench.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Just a reminder, voter registration deadline is May 1st, and then election day is May 16th. So make sure you get out and vote. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you.